Alright, so last problem on the learning guide, a good position function. S of t is negative 16t squared plus v naught t plus s naught is the height in feet of an object at time t in seconds, and the object is thrown straight upward with an initial velocity of 64 feet per second from a height of 80 feet. So we need to substitute those values in to get our function s of t equals negative 16t squared plus v naught, our initial velocity, is 64 t plus s naught, our initial height of 80 feet. That is our function, and we want to find the time when the object hits the ground and find the time when the object find the time when the velocity of the object is 0, aka its maximum value, and find the maximum height of the object. Now notice this is not a calculator problem, so in order to do this, you need to complete the square. But before we complete the square, let's go ahead and factor this. So let's factor out a negative 16. We'll be left with a t squared. 64 divided by 16 is 4. So it's going to be t squared minus 4t, and then figure out how many times 80 goes, reverse that, how many times 16 goes into 80. Well, we already know that 16 times 4 is 64. Add another 16 to 64 and you get 80. So this is going to factor down to 5. So we have minus 5 there. And now we need to find the time when the object hits the ground. Well, the object hits the ground when the height is 0. So we're going to say 0 equals this, and we're going to factor it. So t squared minus 4t minus 5. So what two numbers multiply to give you negative 5 and add to give you negative 4? Well, it's going to be x minus 5 times x plus 1. And then you can see that the object will hit the ground when x is 5, aka when t is 5. So at 5 seconds from that 0 right there, because this 0 is a negative number, and that don't make no sense. So it will hit the ground at t equals 5 seconds. Hit ground. And now our next question, find the time when the velocity of the object is 0 and find the maximum height of the object. Well, the velocity of the object is going to be 0 when the function is at its maximum value, and the maximum height of the object is going to also be at the maximum value, so we essentially need to find the vertex here. So we have this function, s of t equals negative 16 times t squared minus 4t minus 5, and we now need to complete the square on it. So the way I complete the square, again, is I go like this. I'm leaving that there. And I'm going to keep that negative 16 factored out of my first two terms. But I'm going to leave the plus 80 as it was because that's not going to go into the square necessarily. So now I say, well, I need to take half of my negative 4 right there to complete this square. So I'm going to get s of t equals negative 16 times t minus 2 squared. It's always going to work out that way. It's always going to be half of that negative 4. So negative 2 is half of negative 4. So t minus 2 squared. I have my plus 80. But now this is the part where you say, okay, well, in order to complete that square, if I were to work out that t minus 2 squared bit right there, I would get negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. So I really have a positive 4 in there. But that positive 4 is being multiplied by a negative 16. So it's really like I've essentially subtracted 64 from this function. 4 times negative 16 is negative 64. So since I subtracted negative 64, I need to add a 64 to this. So I will get my function s of t equals negative 16 times t minus 2 squared plus 80 plus 64. I get 144. So again, this is going to correspond to the vertex 2, comma 144, which means that the 2 is your time t when the object has a velocity of 0, and the 144 is the maximum height of that object. So I'm super done with this problem, and it was cool because we didn't even need a calculator.